So good morning again, guys. So yesterday we were talking about something called as a decorators, and I hope you must have got a chance to look at them, and probably you must have practiced it as well. Because today I'm going to show you a couple of real life examples, like how can you use a decorator and what is the main use case that where you can implement this functionality called as a decorator. Okay, so let's see a couple of examples of them. Maybe I'll create a new page here, and there we'll start with a very simple example. Let's see first what is the requirement and why we are going to implement this kind of code here. So imagine that I'm writing a huge application, and when I say huge application, there are many different functions, there are many different pages in that application, and I may lose the track, like in which file I was working and what was the function I was writing. So imagine that context. I'm writing a big application, a huge application. Let's say in that huge application, I have a very simple requirement. The requirement is like, I want to add two numbers. I mean, I'm taking a very simple example here, but this example, this function is in the huge application. So it might happen. So this is my P1, P2, as usual, add a function with two parameters, and I'm supposed to get the addition of it. Okay, so here I am. I'm going to go for addition, which is equals to addition, which is equals to P1 star P2. So this is a kind of requirement. I'm supposed to get the addition of them, and this is how we are kind of writing the code. Addition is equals to maybe something like an addition. Okay. Okay, Adesh, you're not able to see it. Just a sec. I think I added only for one. Not a big deal. Just give me a second. We'll add it for others as well. I mean, I added for one batch. I think I need to do it for the others as well. Just give me a second. Oh, by the way, thanks for letting me know. Just a sec. Yes, I got it. Okay, by the way, Adesh, can you please go ahead and refresh your screen and just tell me whether it is visible for you or not? I hope it is. So you can start writing the code along with me, okay? Yes, exactly. It's working very good. Thanks a lot for confirmation, Adesh. Yes, Priyanka and Vijay, I know what I'm writing here. I'm supposed to write plus here, but I told you, like, I'm writing a big application, the huge application, and I may lose the context, you know. So this is the simplest requirement I'm thinking about. But think about the big problem here. So you make a small mistake here, something like instead of using a plus sign, I'm using a star sign. It might happen. We are developers, we are working on different applications, and we are working on different functionalities. So we miss something and which create a bug, you know. So I'm supposed to get the addition of them, but unfortunately I did a multiplication. So everything is good according to me. I've never tested the application. I'm writing this application right now, and probably I'm getting the addition of these two numbers. Okay, fine. Now let me run this application, and I know that 20 plus 10 should give me the answer 30, but oh my God, so the addition is equals to 200, which certainly is something wrong there. So I want to I want to fix this problem. So how do I fix the problem? I see that the addition is equals to 200. I know that I'm passing 20 and 10 parameters. So I can go to the application. I can say this is an addition. I'm supposed to get 20 plus 10 equals to 30, but there I am. So I missed this plus and I mistakenly used a star there. So I got my problem, and I hope I fixed the problem. I test my application, and then I started getting the correct answer. Absolutely right. Now, this is a very simple example where we can go ahead, we can fix the problem because I am testing my application on my machine. I have the source code with me. I can pass the parameters to that, and then I can see everything is working fine. Okay. Now look at the another example. See what happens here. I'm writing similar example. I'm writing similar function, but instead of going for addition, I'm going to go for division. So I'll say divide, say P2, P1 or P1, P2, whatever it is, and I'll get the division. So division is equals to P1 divided by P2, and probably I'm going to say the division is equals to whatever the division answer. I'm going to print it here as it is. So I'm going to say this is divide. I'm developer. I'm testing my application. I'm saying 10 by 10, sorry, 20 by 10. I'm getting the answer as 2. Very good, it's working. Let me give one more try and say something like 10, 50 divided by 10. I'm getting the answer 5.0. I'm happy. For me, everything is working fine. Imagine I'm developing a large application, a huge application. In that application, there is only one functionality, divide. I implemented it from my end as a developer. I tested that application. I see that it's working fine. It's giving me the right result. And then I say like everything is working. Let me ship the product or let me ship the application to my client. So I ship that application to the client. Now client is using this application. Now this is, I'm not a developer. Now this is a client. So I've changed my role. I've changed my hat and now I'm a client. So being a client, I got a code from my developer and I want to give it a try and see if everything is working fine. So how do I do it then? Okay, so I'm a client. I'm going to just test this application. So to test this, maybe I can call that function and I can pass, let's say 10 and 10, 20 and 10. I'm a client, I'm not a developer. So I don't know what that Python programming means. I'm just making a call to that function. Maybe there is a button somewhere in the UI where I click the button and then it is calling that divide function. Just imagine accordingly. So probably I'm saying call that function divide by passing 10 and 20 parameters. As simple as that. I'm getting the answer. Being client, I'm happy. But then I decide to give it a try one more time. So probably I'm going to make a call to this function one more time. And this time I'll pass 20 and a 0. See, I'm a client. I am just testing the application by using a GUI, for example. So there is a GUI, there are two input values, and there is a button, and that clicking on that button is calling this function divide by getting two input parameters, 20 and 0, and see what happens now. Oh, instead of giving me the result, the application is saying exit code equals to 1. That simply means my application is crashing. I'm not a developer, I'm a client. So for me, the application vanishes. Vanishes in the sense it literally disappears because the application is crashed. So being a client, from my understanding, the application is not working. So maybe I can complain to the developer saying, hey, your application is not working. It worked once, but now it's not working. So every time I'm entering the values like 20 and 0, it's not working at all. So fix the problem. So now see, my client has reported a problem to me. I'm a developer now. So my client has reported a problem and client said your divide function is not working. It is supposed to give me the result, but instead the application is crashing. Now I'm a developer right now again. So being a developer, I don't know what values client is passing. I'm going to make a call to that function one more time and try a couple of different scenarios. Maybe 102, it's working. Maybe I'll say 400 divided by 30. It's working as well. It's not crashing at all. Every time I'm getting the result. So being a developer, it never occurred to me that my client must have passed the second parameter as 0. So what I'm trying to say here is there are a few occasions where the application works on your machine. The application works flawlessly on your machine, but it doesn't work on the production environment or it doesn't work on your client's machine. In which case, you cannot just go to the client, you cannot just sit on his machine physically and debug your code. It's not possible because the client is not maybe using your machine, the client is using his machine, he is maybe in other country. It's not possible for you to fly there and sit on his machine and give it a try. So how would you fix the problem? Now there are many different scenarios, there are many different ways you can fix the problem, but one of the major ways is to start logging what exactly the function is getting, what exactly the function is doing, and based on the logs, it will be easy for you to test the application. So what is the logging? Logging means, for example, if I come to know like what parameters user is passing or what exactly the answer user is getting, based on that, I can see whether there is any flaw in my logic or whether there is any bug in my code. So probably I may ask my client to just send all the parameters and all the outputs and other things. But if the client is a non-technical client, or if the technical is, maybe the client is an end user client, where user is using a GUI application, user will not be able to send you all the different use cases, what he has tried. So one of the occasions it's not working, but he is not able to give you all the different parameters he was passing at the time of testing the application. So I'm thinking about a scenario where when I'm writing a code, it's always better for me to log down all the different inputs or all the different calculations or all the different logic I'm implementing in my code. Logging is simply, for me right now, is printing everything on console. Later on, we'll see how to put that in a file. But right now, I want to put that in a maybe on a console right now. So how do I do it? A very simple way to say that, maybe when I go to that divide, I'll say that maybe again inside divide. So basically this will tell me that divide function is getting called. So that's one case, like function is getting called. Second, I want to see what the parameters I'm receiving. So I'll say this is the P1 and the P2. So at least I'll come to know that this is a P1 and P2. Very good, that works. Next thing is like I want to go for a division. So whatever the answer I'm getting, maybe I'll say the division, which is equals to the division. So this is where I'm printing the log. This is the final output, but this is where I'm printing the log. So log in the sense, I'm just making sure that everything is printing on console, so that if anyone is calling that function, I would see what are the parameters the client is passing. Probably I'll just go back here and say, this is where my function starts. So maybe I'll say a kind of separator. It'll be easy for me to trace that it starts the function and it ends the function. So this is what I'm trying to do. And when I call that function, say I'm calling that function with 102, probably I see that the parameters passed here are 100 and 2. I'm getting the division 50.0. So looking at this, it seems like okay to me. Now, maybe I added the login and then I gave this application to my client again. Now client, I'm a client for example now. So I want to test the application. So again, being a client, I'm passing the values 10, 20. It worked. I see I'm getting an answer like division equals to 2.0. Fine. I'm at a client again. Like last time, I want to give it a try by passing 20 and 0. And when I say run, probably, oh, again, the application is crashing. So this time, I'm being a client, want to complain to the developer saying, hey, your code is not working. Now see, if I'm a developer and if I've done this kind of logging, then I may ask my client to, hey, just tell me like what exactly you see on console. So on console, whatever he sees, and if I ask him to just copy and paste it, then for me, if I get this input, then I can easily see that, hey, it seems like the function is getting called. Very good. The function is receiving the parameter P1 is equals to 20 and oh, P2 is equals to 0. Now being a developer, I come to know that a client is passing parameters like 20 and 0. This is a very simple use case, but imagine when you are writing a function with maybe 20 or 30 such parameters, this will come very, very handy. And this will give you a chance to trace your errors. So I don't know whether you have developed a real life application or production applications or not, but believe me and trust me, when you are writing when you are writing a production grade applications, logging is one of the most important things there, because right now you can debug the application on your machine. You can set the breakpoint. You can literally go step by step debugging the application and find out the errors. You can fix the errors. You can fix the bugs. But when you move this application to the production environment, imagine the application is running somewhere in the cloud. It's not possible for you to fix the code there or maybe debug the application there. So there you cannot debug the application. So there, these kind of logs will help you a lot to trace down the error. Not only the crashing errors I'm saying, but it is again giving you a kind of insights like what is happening, what parameters the function is getting, what are the calculated result it is facing, and probably this is a way to trace the problem. It's not only Python I'm saying, I'm just making a very generic statement here. Fortunately, I've worked on various different platforms and I am working with all my clients on daily basis. I'm a real life, I'm a full stack developer. So I'm developing many applications with my real clients. I'm a freelancer, I told you. So this comes really handy. Take it from me, not as a kind of a faculty here, but take it as a developer's advice. Whenever you are developing an application, it's always a good habit to start logging the stuff. But when you talk about something like this, when you start logging something like this, then don't you see that it's really painful to add these kind of logs every single time in every single function? Becomes too much. I mean, I can see here like, okay, divide, I'm done with this. What if I want to go for addition? Again, I'll have to do exactly same thing what I did earlier. So for me, it's like print again dash somewhere here 40. So I can see the function is getting called. Again, I want to print all the parameters P1 and P2, whatever it is. So maybe I can say right inside this, inside add, again print. I'm going to see the parameters like say P1 is equals to P1 and P2 is equals to P2. like as usual, what we have seen earlier. And if you want, you can put the addition result as well. So probably when I say run for that add, then again, I'll see, oh, the add function is getting called with the parameters 20 and 10. It becomes very easy for me to replicate the scenario on my machine. Looking at the logs, it becomes easy for me to replicate the issues on my machine. So probably right now we are not putting anything in the log as a separate file, but right after this, we will do it. That's what I'm going to show you here. So when I say you are talking about writing such logs, don't you see that? It's kind of repetition of code. Before the function gets called, I want to print this information. After the function gets kind of exited, I want to print this kind of information. And this is kind of same for every single function that I want to log, or I think like, oh, this is the important function and I should not miss any of the functionalities there. So I'm not saying do it for every single function, but at least where you are implementing the core logic, the important logic, you should always log the things. Okay. So basically when you're talking about something like this will give you a kind of insights on the production environment, which will tell you like what is happening, what exactly the logic it is kind of implementing, whether it is good or whether it's bad, whether it's bug free or there are any bugs, and what exactly the calculations are going on. So are they according to my logic? Are they according to my calculations? So probably this will give you the insights of your application. And that's the reason it's a very good idea to log all the parameters like this. But again, I know it is beneficial to do it, but unnecessary, it is going to waste my time if I start doing it something like this. Ring a bell? See, exactly what we have seen yesterday is kind of, just giving me the same requirement. It seems like it's a deja vu. I mean, I already have seen that. I already have felt that yesterday as well. When I was writing that add function, I came to know that, oh, I wanted to decorate my result. I used only those dashes there. But this time, it's not only the dashes. I want to go ahead and put some more parameters. See, if you can fit your problem in one of the categories, you definitely can find a solution easily. So if I know that, this is a problem of kind of decorating your result. See, ultimately my result will stay same. There is no change in the result, but I'm just decorating it. Decorating in a sense, maybe you can add some extra parameters to it, or maybe you can add some more calculations on top of it, whatever it is. But the function is giving me the result and I want to use that result and maybe either process it or maybe I can decorate it with adding some kind of loggings there. So if you think about this kind of requirement here, decorator plays very important role. Imagine you are having hundreds of functions and you don't want to write these lines of code again and again, which is kind of wastage of not only your time, but also it's a wastage of your code length. It increases the code length as well, wastage of disk storage as well. It's not required in fact. So when you think about this kind of requirement, you can definitely go for something called as a decorator. Now I'm going to write two types of decorators. One will print every single thing on console, and two will first see the file IO so that we can log every single thing into a file, and then we can ask our client to send the file if something is not going well, if something is breaking, if something is not as per the logic. So we can ask our client to send that file. Generally, this is called as a log file. Again, this is something can be done by using a decorator. I'm not saying decorator has to be used here, but decorator will definitely help you to achieve what you are trying to achieve here. Okay, so let's look at the first example. This example, we are not going to use file. Next example, we'll first look at the file IO, how to deal with the files, and then we'll convert this the same decorator to log every single thing into a file. Let's see how it can be done. Before we do that, okay, maybe what you are saying, Parag? It's same as if application crashes, it sends a log file to the developer. Absolutely right. So that is what the log file we are talking about. Within Android has a special function to log to work with. Not only Android, it's kind of used everywhere. You go for iOS, you go for Android, you go for PHP, you go for maybe Node, you go for anywhere like Python. You can go anywhere and you can find such kind of loggers. Exactly. So Sripati, your question, assume that I have 30-page application and if I implement this logic application, it's a performance issue. See, when you're talking about doing that extensively, again, it's bad. I'm not saying that. That's the reason I made my statement carefully. I didn't say that implement the logging in every single function. Of course, if you do it, it will hurt your performance. But what I'm saying here is, if you know that the logic is critical and you don't want to introduce any bug there, only in that case, you should go for logging. So Shripati, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying do it in every single function, but at least do it in that function, which is going to give you a kind of insights of that logic, the critical logic. So I'm implementing a business logic. There, it's important for me to log in. So if tomorrow, if something is not working, I can definitely look into log and see why it is not working or what parameters I'm receiving and where I'm going wrong. I hope Sripati, you must have got my point there. Okay, so not only 30 pages app, if you are having hundreds and thousands of functions, which generally a normal production grade application has it. So if you are having hundreds and thousands of functions, don't do it in every single function. This will create a performance issue, but at least do it in those maybe few hundred applications, a few hundred functions where the logic is critical. Okay. Utpal, all .io files are log files. Not necessary, in fact, because it depends on you, what type of extensions you want to use. Extensions are pretty much developer centric. Developer can decide whether it could be a .log file, .io file, .txt file, .binary file, whatever it is. But right now, important thing is you should put every single thing into a file. How do you do that? I'm going to show you that. Okay. Yes. So Ketan, absolutely right. Again, one more time, no big deal. I'm requesting all of you to use all the questions on public channel. I know it happens because this is the Zoom. If you click on that, it automatically sets it to private. Maybe you can go to your chat and probably you just go here and set to everyone. So everyone can see what type of question you are asking. So everyone will get the context. I understand, Keval, what you are saying. Okay, no big deal. Okay, so now we know where we should use this. I think it's a better idea to create a separate file and start adding every single thing into one of the into one of the decorators, and that decorator will turn it into a file-based decorator as well. This is page 2. Watch what happens now. Now, before we go to this page 2, let me just give you some basics of a function. So it will be easy for me to write that same basics into a kind of a decorator. Okay, watch this. Maybe I have a function here. It could be add function, it could be divide function. Now, I hope you still recall a function, when you write it in Python, by default, it treats it as a variable, and behind the scene, that variable gets pointed or gets reference of that memory block where the function's body is loaded. I've said that hundreds of times now. So now you know this for sure. So now I can take that benefit and I can say, what is my function's name? So probably if I want to find it dynamically, I'm not saying this is going to be a kind of a function name. I can put it here hard-codedly, but I want to do it dynamically. Maybe to do this, I can first write a simple function. Let's look at it as a separate function. It will give me a simple way to demonstrate few of the function's capability. So this is again, let's say a log function, or simply a log, for example, which is going to accept a function. What can we log there? That's what I'm trying to show you here. See, I want to put the function's name. How do I put the function name? So tomorrow, if I say log add, so it should tell me that the function name is add. If I say log something like a what is that? Divide, I guess. So if I say divide, it should tell me that function name is divide. So how do I get it? To get it, I can say function dot underscore underscore name underscore underscore. As I said earlier, every function is treated as a variable, and every variable in Python has some default attributes or default properties like this. Dunder name. I hope I mentioned that earlier as well. So dunder is the way you can say underscore underscore something underscore underscore. So dunder name is like underscore underscore name underscore underscore. This will tell me what is the function's name. So as I said earlier, I'm going to say inside divide or inside something like add. So I can get that add or divide function name automatically or dynamically. See, I'm calling a log function right now, and it tells me the function name is add because I called log first time with the add functions or adds reference, and second time I call that function with the divides reference. So I got the function name as divide. So basically, if I want to get all the functions, all the functions attributes, then you can definitely do it by using something like a function dot underscore underscore name underscore underscore. So that's how we can deal with getting the function's name. Probably you can also remember how to get all the parameters, how to write a variable length argument function. I hope you can still recall something called as args and quarks. Args is the way we can get all the parameters in a tuple, And quarks is another way to get all the parameters in dictionaries, where we are passing the parameters along with the arguments along with the parameters name. That is called as variable length argument function. So why am I telling you this? Because now I want to write a function which I want to convert it into a decorator, and that decorator should be generic enough that can be used for any type of function. It can be a function with one parameter, two parameter, three parameters, doesn't matter, or no parameter at all. So if I have a requirement, like I want to log all these parameters along with the function name, something like this, then I should write a function which is a generic or which is a variable length argument function. So let us see how it can be done. Stay with me. I'll show you a quick example first, and then we'll turn it into a proper logger function. Okay, so let's see how it can be done. First, I'm writing a decorator. I guess you know how to write a decorator now. Can someone please quickly tell me how to write a decorator? What do I need to do in order to write a decorator? What's the first requirement of a decorator? Yes, exactly, closure. So ultimately, when you want to write a decorator, you first have to write a closure. I'm going to mark it as a log. Doesn't matter what's the name of that function you are using here. So I'm going to mark it as a log. This log will have an inner function, def inner function. You do whatever you want to do. I'm just going to make it as a pass just to start with it. And then probably I'll say return inner. That's it. What you have written here is called as a closure. It's not a decorator, it's a closure. Now, if you want this log to be used as a decorator, then you should add some more things into it. The very first thing that you should add is the function parameter. Now, this parameter name can be anything. I'm using as a function. That does not mean like it has to be hard coded with the name function. I'm just making it general to understand like this is a function. That function will take it as a kind of a function reference. It can be add, it can be whatever it is. So this is the function. Now, this is the first requirement. The second requirement is like the inner function should accept all the parameters that I want the other function to receive. What do you mean by this? I'm talking about this here. See here. Maybe if I'm writing an add function, and if I say P1 and P2, so inside this, when I say add is the function name. This function reference will be taken here on the outer function. And then the parameters P1 and P2 has to be taken here inside the inner function. If you are meeting with this criteria, then and only then you can make it, or you can treat that closure as a decorator. So this is the special requirement, and I already have shown you this requirement yesterday. I mean, I didn't talk about the requirement, but I gave you a couple of examples of it. And if you can look at those examples, you will notice that we are following exactly same pattern. Yesterday, I think we have written a couple of decorators, and those decorators were following exact same criteria. All of them were closures. Outer function like log or whatever function we were using, or execute, for example, that was receiving a function, and inner function was receiving a kind of list of parameters that we wanted to pass to the inner function. So please remember, the function here is nothing but add, and P1, P2, I need to pass them to add function, which means I'm going to come back here like yesterday. I'm going to put a dot here, or maybe dash here, whatever it is. I'll say 40. Do it one more time. So I can say where it starts, where it ends. And then I can make a call to that function. And there we'll say, oh, this is P1 and P2. Ultimately, my function is going to point to add. And this function is going to receive P1 and P2 like 10, 20, 20, 30, whatever it is. The list of parameters I'm supposed to pass. Now let's come back here and say this is an addition. So probably I'll just come back and simply get the addition of both of them. So addition is equals to probably P1 plus P2. That's it, as simple as that. I'm going to make a call to that function first. Let's say add, maybe I'll say 10 and 20. And if I say run, probably I'll get the addition. Of course, the addition is right here, but I'm not getting that decorators dash, dash, dash before the call and after the call. I think I'm missing something. What am I missing something? Yes, Vipin, you're right. But others, what am I missing here? Exactly, at the rate. What am I missing is at the rate. You have to come back and say log. You know this, if you say something like a log here, then every single time you call that function, it would be treated like this. First, you are going to call that main function, that is a log. You will pass that add function. You will get a return, say log underscore add, and then log underscore add will get called with parameters 10 and 20. this will be auto-generated code for you. It's not like you have to do it on your own, but it will be auto-generated for you. And that's how you can say, when I call that add function, you see, now I'm getting dash, 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 dash before and after the call. That's it. This is what I was thinking about earlier as well. So hopefully you already have seen this example yesterday. Now see some limitations and let's see how to fix the problem. First, it's not limitation, but I just showed you like how to get the function name. So along with this, I want to get the function's name. Fine, it's very simple. We already have seen it. So probably I'm going to come back here and say I am inside a function. So inside a function named, how do I get the function's name? Probably we already have seen that last time. It's function underscore underscore name underscore underscore. So that is a dunder name. Dunder name is the way you can get a variable's name. For me, function itself is a variable. So this is how I can get the function's name. Watch what happens. When I say run, probably it shows me I'm inside the function named add, and right here, I'm getting the addition of that result. Result is not something which I'm bothered about right now, but what I'm bothered about is like, how do I get all the parameters and how do I put them maybe on console? Later on, we'll turn this console output to a file. Okay, who's that? Chandrakant, explain this example in case of multiple parameters by using args. Absolutely, Chandrakant, that will be my second step. This is my first step. I told you like we are going to go step by step fashion. Right now, we are just talking about getting the function name. I'm supposed to show you the limitations of this log function. And one of the limitations is what you're asking me to do. So just give me a second, I'll show you that. Right now, I see I'm in that add function, looking great. And then I'm going to print all my input values. Say P1, which is equals to P1, and P2, which is equals to P2. Very simple. And in this case, when I say run, I can see that by default, it is telling me I'm inside function add. I'm getting the P1 is equals to 10 and P2 is equals to 20. You see, my decorator is working flawlessly. I mean, tomorrow if I decide not to log this function, not a big deal, just remove it and everything will work as if there is no logging. So basically this was my original result. I was getting it earlier before I added that decorator. But now you see, I'm coming back to the same situation again. If I really want to log this, just go back and say log. As simple as that. See how simple is that? So probably when I say run, it worked. You see, now I'm getting the function's name dynamically. I'm also getting the number of parameters I'm passing, the list of parameters I'm passing, and so on and so forth. Maybe similar to it, I'm going to write one more function. Watch what happens now. I'm going to write a similar function. Let's say divide again, what I showed you earlier. That's P1 plus P1 and P2. And again, I'm going to come back and say, what the heck? Print, this is a division, which is equals to P1 slash P2. As simple as that. Let's call this function again by saying 30 and 20, whatever it is, the answer 1.5. I'm not interested in the answer, but seems like it's not logging anything. Not a big deal. You know that if you want to log this, you can simply say @log, and probably when I say log, you see it's as simple as this. Now it has turned your logging on, and probably I can see inside function name divide, I'm getting the parameters 30 and 20. Everything is working fine. Very, very nice. Everything is working fine. But now see the biggest problem. I have one more function. Let's imagine that the function is a kind of a square function, very simple. Again, in that square function, I'm supposed to take only one number. So I'll say a number, for example, and I'm supposed to get the square of this number. So probably I'll say something like the square of number, which is equals to, I can say number star star 2, as simple as that. Let me call that square function and pass 10. I'm supposed to get the square of 10 is equals to 100. That works very well. But now I want to log it. Now see what happens. I'm going to say log here, and probably before I say run, I want to tell you like what is going to happen. I hope you know that because I'm saying @log, that means this function call will turn into those two statements which I mentioned earlier. Say log underscore square, for example, which is equals to log by passing that square's reference. And then you can say log square and then pass 10. Watch what happens here. When I say log square 10, the log square will point to or will refer the inner function. Inner function right now is accepting two parameters, and we are passing only 1 because my square is accepting only 1. So because square is accepting 1, that 10 parameter will be passed to inner. Inner will not get any parameter for P2, and that's why it is going to complain and say, hey, you are missing 1 parameter for P2. See, last time it was working flawlessly for add and divide because both of them were having exact same number of arguments. That's 2 number of arguments for both of them worked flawlessly. But right now, because I'm talking about a function like square, which is accepting only 1 number, or maybe if I have another function which is having more than two number of parameters, there also you are going to see the similar problem. What do you mean by this? This means the decorator I have written here, or the closure which I'm using as a decorator I've written here, it's made for, it's made specially for those kind of functions which are accepting only 2 parameters. Now, fine, I understood that. This is the way we have thought of earlier because we were thinking about to log add and divide. That's the reason it didn't occur to me that I should make it generic. So that's the reason we have kind of hard coded the parameter numbers like P1 and P2 in this context. Fine, it worked well, but now I want to make it generic. Now, when I say I want to make it generic, that simply means I want to use this function for any type of functions, having single parameter, no parameter, multiple parameters, I don't care. I want to use that log function for all the functions out there. How do I do this? Now, to do this, we'll have to just write a very simple function or very simple change here. Now, I hope we already have seen how to write a variable length argument function. So instead of writing a inner function with hard coded number of parameters, you can turn this into a variable length argument function. Can someone tell me like what am I supposed to do here in the inner to make it variable length argument function so that it can accept any number of parameters? Exactly. I'm supposed to add not only args, all of you are missing one thing, args as well as quarks. See, if you use args, it will be 50%. If you are using another 50%, or if you have to use another 50%, then it is a quarks. So basically what I'm going to say here is like args and quarks. That's it. That's the end of the story. Now it can accept any number of parameters. But it has created another problem. The problem is, now how would I log the parameters? Or how would I pass those args and quarks to my function, right? So let me show you this. Now, instead of hard coding this P1 and P2, because now I'm taking args and quarks, it becomes even simpler for me. So probably I can say, whatever the args I'm getting, arguments, I can directly put them here. This is going to give me the tuple of all the values I'm going to receive from that function. At the same time, it's always a good idea to put the quarks as well. So probably I'm saying quarks is equals to KW args or quarks. So basically here I've solved the problem of logging all my parameters. But now how do I pass them? So to pass them, you can't pass them directly like this, args and quarks. If you pass them like args and quarks, tuple and dictionary will be passed as it is. There will be no change. It will be passed as a value. You don't want to do that. You want to pass whatever you are getting. So don't forget, this is a very special condition where you are calling a function with whatever number of arguments and KW arguments you are getting from your function as input parameters. So whatever you get here, just pass them to maybe the inner function or that function you want to call. So now this function is a generic function, or this not generic to be very precise, but generic I mean to say here is it's a variable length argument function. Variable length argument function. Okay, variable length argument function means the inner function can accept any number of parameters. Here we were passing 10 and 20. Those parameters were getting passed to the inner function. So now we can pass 2 number of parameters or 1 number of parameters or no parameters at all. So now if I say run, see, it can also log my square function as well. Right? Last time it didn't work because I was hard coding the number of parameters, but now I made that inner function as variable length argument function and it solved my problem. Not only this, if I just go back to add or subtract or divide whatever functions I'm having, it is going to work for all of them. Check this out. This is my log for add. This is my log for divide. and this is my log for square, and you see all of them are having maybe same or multiple number of parameters. Based on that, we are kind of logging all the things. So now I can see, hey, we are inside add function and we have received 10 and 20. Maybe inside divide function we have received 30 and 20, and inside square function we have received a value 10. That's it. So precisely, again, whenever you are doing something like this, the decorator would help you here in this context to get your all logs out on the console. At least in this case, we are moving them on the console. Maybe in the next example, we will move them in a file. But to start with, I think it's a good idea to log all of these things. Guys, are you getting this? Any doubt here? Any question here? Do you want me to repeat something? I think it's kind of easy to understand, but hopefully I want to get the confirmation from you. Chandrakant, I think that solves your problem as well, right? So you asked me to put an example of arcs. So this is an example of it, right? Very good. So now you see like how the decorator is going to help you in the real world. This is one of the few examples where decorator has to be used. There are a few more examples. One of the other examples is like where you can find out the timing for your application or timing for your function, like how much time that function is taking. I can't show you that today because that requires a kind of external package called as a time. So I can't show you that today. Maybe once we know the modules and packages, we'll revisit that example one more time. So there I can literally show you how much time your function is taking. Imagine that you are doing so much of work and you want to see how good your logic is. To do this, you want to check the time taken. Again, the same thing will be done. The same thing in a sense here, just you have to calculate the start time. Here you calculate the end time and just get the difference of this. That's it. It's as simple as that. Anyways, coming back to your question again, Shubham, how the args and quarks come to know about the parameters. It's not like how they come to know, because this is the standard, maybe you can say syntax or standard feature in Python, where args will be considered as a tuple and quarks will be considered as a dictionary. And as whatever you pass there, for example, if I pass 10 or maybe 30-20 or maybe 10-20, all of them will be collected inside args, provided you are not passing any parameters like P1, P2. All of them will be collected in args. And if I say, check this out, if I say maybe I'll call that square function one more time and say this time number is equals to 5. So see, in this case, I'll have one more log of square where instead of using args, I'm getting it in a quarks. This is something we already have discussed. So this is the feature. It's a syntax. It's a way Python works. Okay. So Shubham, this is the way Python compiler works behind the scene. Parag, what if I want to log the parameters like P1 and P2? I think you got the point here. Parag, this is also your problem as well. So probably you see here, now even if you are passing them by name, like if I say divide and say P2 is equals to 40 and let's say P1 is equals to 10. I mean, deliberately I'm passing them with different order, but still, you know that all of them will get logged and probably you are going to get the correct answer as well. So this is the way you can log everything without modifying your original code. And again, this is literally configurable. Now tomorrow, if you decide not to log this function, not a big deal. You don't have to modify any line of code. Just go and remove that log and you are done. Or maybe you can comment that log and you are done. Just commit it out. That's it. So tomorrow, if you see everything is working fine, I don't need to log it again. No problem. Just disable it and everything will work as per your expectation. So probably I can turn it on and turn it off dynamically, and that's how we can do it. You know, Prashant, the beauty is we can keep this closure and make use of any other programming languages with the small change. Absolutely, that's what I just mentioned here. So with a very small change, you can turn it on, turn it off, and you can put it on every single function you want to test or you want to see whether the logic is working fine. So if the logic is critical, I would recommend to do it, and that is how you can turn on the logging. Again, the good thing is like there are many different loggers available in Python. We'll literally explore them later once we know the packages and we know once we know like how to download them. I'll show you a couple of examples later as well. But those loggers are doing exactly what I just show you here. Okay. Vipin, your question, can we say the number of arguments is not an issue for overloading a function? We'll talk about this. Overloading is something that we have to talk about right after this when we go to the object-oriented programming concept. Okay, just hold your question, Vipin, you will get the answer. Adesh, your question, Now I got why there is a need of a decorator, because yesterday I thought there is a decorator of code and end user. Absolutely. I got the point. In fact, that's the reason I said yesterday, just wait and tomorrow you will see the real example and you will appreciate what Python has provided. And believe me or not, people like Python because of these features. With a very little effort, you can do many things, which is kind of a nightmare in other programming languages. So yes, this is one of the best features of Python. This is called as a decorator. I'm just giving you only 50% of decorator, by the way. Other 50% I'm not talking about it because it is a little bit advanced. I know you will get a bit confused about it, and maybe I don't want to introduce the confusion, and I don't want you to mess up with whatever you have learned so far. So otherwise, I can show you one more couple of examples where you can have some decorators of decorators, and there you can do it, or maybe there you can literally design your own framework. For example, what Flask has done. Later on, you will see what Flask has done. So if you really want to do it on your own, you can just go and learn the advanced decorators, and you will see how powerful the decorators are. Anyways, that's the way you can do it. Okay. Okay. Shivanjali, how to solve this problem of 20 by 0? You can't solve that problem right now. You have to solve this problem after we are done with object-oriented programming, because there you will see how to use something called as exception handling, and then you will be able to solve that problem. Right now, just skip it, because I know even if I pass 0 right now, it's going to crash. But at least I'll come to know that, oh, someone has called the parameter P2 parameter with 0, and that's the reason why it is crashing. You see, the function divide got called, divide got parameters 10 and 0, no quarks, and I see that the function did not complete. So function crashed, which means divide crashed with the parameters 10 and 0. Then I can pass correct value. Then I can check, okay, this is crashing for 0. I can test it, and I know that you cannot divide any number by 0. So now I'll check if P1, P2 is equals to 0. Then I can print a message saying you cannot divide any number, any number by 0. So maybe I can do that check here, and otherwise else then we can do this part here. That's how we can solve the problem. So this is a quick fix. Later on you can go for something called exception handling, and then we can solve that problem as well. Okay, Shripati, your question, can we use if logic for print the message? If logic for print the message, I think, are you talking about this, Shripati? I don't know. I mean, I'm just reading that message. Is that what you're talking about? To resolve the issue. Okay, not a question. Fine. Okay, so this is what you can do right now. I think this is what I just tried here. But you know what? I mean, this is a good idea to do it. But again, there is something called as exception handling. So that way we can see when the exception is getting handled, or when the exception is getting raised, and how we can handle that exception. Okay, not a big deal. Okay, Chandrakant, your question, increase of 0 parameter. Yeah, that's what we have done here. Ketan, add 10, this call is showing an error. This call is showing an error. Of course it will show an error. So probably what you're saying here is, I don't think you are able to recall the session we had earlier, because in this case, when you are saying add, it's mandatory for me to pass P1 and P2. So you pass it like this, 10 and 20, whatever it is, I don't care. In this case, if I work with this, it works. I mean, it gives me a kind of output which I'm looking for. If I do it only 20 and P2 equals to 10, it still works. But if I say P3 here, the file, the logging will be done properly. You see, argument 20 will be passed, it will be collected by P1, and then P3 will be passed here as a kind of extra parameter. But haven't you seen that P3 is there, but P2 didn't get any value, and still P3 also is not having any parameter there. So that's how you can see the problem exists. I mean, the problem exists because your function is receiving something which is not there. Okay, so probably why it is showing an error, Ketan? It's just because you are passing P3, which is not accepted here in add. If you really want to make sure that it is accepting it, then you have to turn this function into a kind of variable length argument function. Then it will work as per your expectation. If you really want to check that, check this out. Maybe I can say the addition, or let's say sum, which is equals to 0 for every number in arguments, args. We can say sum plus equals to number, and then we can print the final sum. Sorry, my bad, it's args, and print, let's say sum is equals to sum. Now, even if I pass P1, P2, P3, everything will work according to you. So if you really want to make it working, you have to turn the original function, that add function, into a kind of a variable length argument function. So then and only then it is supposed to get all those parameters. Okay. Omkar, your question: if you use log, then it gives some one-time call to log function without calling add or divide function. Not getting what you're trying to say here. If we use log, then it gives one-time call to log function without calling the add or divide function. No, you can see that it is calling that function, isn't it? So probably if you see here log, it is literally calling that function. So if you see log, the divide function is getting called. You are getting the division. If you see for square, yes, it is calling that function and you are getting the square of it. It is calling the function. So not only this, I mean, if you just say @log, it works and it calls that function behind the scene. Okay. Chandrakant, your question: if we do not pass any parameter by mistake, then what will happen? Nothing. It depends on what exactly your function is made for. So probably forget about this log for a second. What if I'm calling that function square with value 10 or without value, not value 10, but without passing any parameter? What will happen? The function will accept no parameter, in which case your application is going to crash saying, hey, you have missed the parameter number. So even though you are doing that logging or not, but still, if your original function is supposed to receive a parameter, then you have to pass a parameter. But the good thing here is, if you turn this function on, then, I mean, the logging is on, at least you will see that inside function square, you haven't received anything here. And that's the reason why your application is crashing. So you know that the reason now why the application crashed. Okay. Anyways, now you know how to deal with a how to deal with a decorator based logging, and this is how we can turn the logging on and we can put all the logs on console. It's good thing. I mean, it started working. I'm happy with it, but it has its own limitation. The limitation is everything is going on console. So I'm a little bit confused, like what in that console output is my original output and what is the logging part. I mean, I'm not able to differentiate between the final output and the logging done, because everything is coming down on console, and that's the reason it's creating a kind of a mess there. So how do I fix this problem? Now to fix this problem, I want to go for file-based logging. Now when I say file-based logging, very simple. I can just turn the file on and then put every single thing in one of the files. But to do this, probably we need to know how to deal with the files, you know. So let us write a couple of examples to deal with the files, read the data from file, maybe put the data into the file, and so on and so forth. And then we'll come back and then we'll modify our logger function to put logs in file and actual output on console. So let's see how it can be done. So probably here I'm going to create a third page, page 3, and there we want to deal with something called as a file handling. Absolutely, Naresh, this is called as a file handling. So basically, unless we handle the files, unless we know how to deal with the files, we'll not be able to turn that decorator into the file-based decorator. No? So when you talk about the file handling, there are a few things I hope everyone knows. I mean, I'm not going into too much of details right now because I'm assuming that everyone knows at least the basic things, like how the file gets stored on the disk. Not necessary that I have to talk about this here, but at least you should know this. Like whenever you are saving the contents of the file gets saved on your disk. Of course, the data in that file gets converted into ASCII characters, and the ASCII gets converted into finally binaries, ones and zeros, and that's how the data gets saved on the disk. Okay. Now, when you want to read the data, for you being a kind of Python developer, you don't have to worry about what happens internally, but at least knowing that, it is a good idea. Anyways, so right now, if I want to do the file operations, there are a couple of file operations you can do it easily with maybe Python's default functionality. The first one is like create a file. The second functionality or the second scenario is like add contents, or maybe I'll say write a file, write contents to the file. The third one is like read contents from the file. And finally, close the file. Very, very, very simple. Now today we are talking about only few of them. That's it. Maybe we can add one more instead of saying write, maybe overwrite, and again append contents to the file. So basically I'm going to show you both of them, how to read the file and how to write the file and how to append to the file. Delete, we'll see. Deleting, copying, maybe moving from here to there, cutting from here, pasting it there, all of these things we'll see later, because for that we'll have to use a OS package. So unless you know OS package, you will not be able to do that. So today we are just going to do with the basic handling, and later I'll show you one more example or one more session. We'll talk about the packages, and one of the packages we're going to talk about the OS, and there we'll see these kind of details. Okay, now let us come back here, write couple of functions, and let's try doing all of these things separately. Maybe the simplest function, this is the function 1, where I want to write a file, write contents, or simply write a file. That's it. So I'm going to write a file here. How do I do that? To write a file, first of all, you have to follow a kind of sequential steps. I mean, there are a few steps we have to follow, and every single time you have to follow the steps one by one. You want to write a file, you want to maybe read the file, both of them will require you to follow step number 1. The step number 1 is to open the file. Step number 2 is to perform the operation, whatever operation you are supposed to perform. And step number 3, very important, at least in case of write, because unless you close the file, the data will not be flushed on the disk. In a sense, the data will not be permanently stored on the disk. So it's very important to close the file as well. Okay, so this is a kind of open the file, perform the operation, and close the file. Very, very, very simple case. How do I do it then? Now to open a file, you can say file is equals to, file is a variable, is equals to open. Open is directly a call, by default supported in Python. And this open call will accept couple of parameters, like what is the file or where is the file that you want to open. So probably I'm going to say my file should be in the same directory, /, and I'll say this is going to be myfile.txt. As simple as that. The second parameter is where we can supply the mode in the sense, do I want to open that in read mode or write mode or text mode or binary mode. By default, if I do not specify the text or binary, it will be considered as a text. If I want to open that in the write mode, then we'll have to say W. W means it will allow you to write the contents in the file. If you say R, it will be open as a read-only file, in which case you will not be able to modify the contents, or you will not be able to write into the file. But if you really want to write the contents, you can say W. W means it's open the file in the write mode. That's it. Most of the times people generally forget to close the file, and that's the reason it creates a kind of too many handles for that file. And because of that, sometimes your application may kind of raise an exception saying too many files open, too many file handles are open. So it may not allow you to run the further functionality of your application. Now that's the reason why we generally, once open the file, close the file as well by saying file.close. That's it. It's as simple as that. So the first step is open the file. The last step is close the file. Naturally, whatever you want to perform an operation has to be done before closing the file, after opening the file. So which logically is somewhere here. Now the operation which I want to perform here is a write file. So what do you want to write? Maybe I want to write simple thing like file.write. What do you want to write? Maybe I want to write something like India is my country. I love my country, or I love India. All Indians are my brothers and sisters. Again, just for writing purpose, you know how we are living in these days. No one believes this constitutional pledge anymore. But again, just for the sake of writing somewhere, I can say all Indians are my brothers and sisters. We don't believe in this slogan these days. Am I right? Anyways. Let's come back to the point here and say, yeah, I'm opening a file, I'm writing the contents to that file, and then I'm closing the file. Let's see if that really works. So probably I'm going to come back here and call that function write file. See, in my current directory, I do not have any file named myfile.txt. Okay. So now I'm going to run this code and see what happens. So when I say run, probably you will see that there is nothing on the console because I didn't print anything. But you must have noticed now I have got a new file created named myfile.txt, and if I open this myfile.txt, you see all the contents that I've written earlier. I see how simple is that. Okay, I wonder why we use dot slash whenever we use a file. When you say dot slash, dot is the way you can say the current directory, and you are saying like the myfile.txt is, I mean, it should be there in the same directory. If I want to put it in some different directory, for example, if you are on Windows, then you might say c:/Windows or c:/ whatever, or d:/ files or somewhere there. If you're on Linux, you might say something like /tmp/somewhere. So if I say /tmp/my file will get created in the temp location. But I want to create that in the same directory, and that's the reason why we are using dot slash. You may say dot slash or you may not say dot slash. Both of them will give you exact same result. So probably when I say open my file, again, it is going to create a myfile.txt in the same directory. So if you don't say dot slash, it's by default assumed that the file should be created in the same directory there. Okay. Tanya, you are saying sometimes we also use a forward slash or backward slash. Not sure if it shows error on Windows sometimes. Of course it will, because when you talk about the Windows uses a forward slash and Linux uses a backward slash, and that's how we generally write the code there. So generally, when you are on Windows, you say Windows c:/something something slash something something. But when you're on Linux, you can say slash, I mean the root something root slash something like this, right? So basically, when you talk about something like a Windows on Linux, that's a operating system behavior. That, I mean, according to that, you will have to write the code. So for example, in Windows, it's like c:, maybe myfiles/myfile.txt. Or if you are on Linux or Mac, both of them will use the same scenario here. So probably I'll say this is where I want to put that code. Maybe I'll say /home/user/myfile.txt, as simple as that. So depending on which operating system you are on, you can use this particular path here. Okay. Okay, so when you talk about this, probably it's very simple. Just open a file by calling a function open and passing the name of that file, mode of that file. And when you say mode is W, it is going to override the contents. Watch what happens now. Instead of using this one, I'll just put it in comment and I'll call function.write one more time and say that this is a new content. Maybe I love watching movies. True, I love watching movies. So when I say run this time, you see nothing has been shown on console, but nothing to be worried about because we didn't say anything like print. So if I open that file, myfile.txt, oh, I lost the contents which I had put earlier, but now you see all the contents got overwritten with the new content, I love watching movies. That's it. So whenever you are opening a file with W mode, W means it's write. And when you say mode is equals to W, there are a couple of things. So when I say mode is equals to W, I'm sorry, mode is equals to W, the first thing that simply means here is one, create a file. Sorry, create a file. If it does not exist, that's the first thing. And second thing, always overwrite the content. That's it. So when I say W, it will create the file if it does not exist, and it will always overwrite the content. So whatever contents we were having earlier, they will be lost. You know, so that's the reason you should always use W when you want to overwrite the changes. That's how it is. No, but I think this is wrong, isn't it? I want to put the previous content. I mean, I want to use the previous contents as it is, and then I want to append some new content. So how do I do this? See, the second function will help you to do this. So probably I'll say append file. So here, instead of overwriting the changes, I want to append the new code, new contents with the other contents, other existing contents. So to do this, again, I'm going to say file, same code, same function. Open file name is, you may say dot slash or you may say directly, it doesn't matter. Say myfile.txt. This time I'll say A for append. So probably I'm going to say A. This is the mode, A for append. And when I say append, that means original or maybe the previous changes or previous contents will be persisted. Previous contents will be persisted. So basically previous contents will be persisted, and on top of it, the new changes will be added. So this is how it does the job. Let's try it and see whether it is kind of doing a job or not. So again, perform the operation, whatever operation you want to perform, and then don't forget to say this, close the file. File closing is very simple. So let me do it in this way and perform the operation. Again, the same operation will be performed. Let's say file.write, let's say new content return. New content return. That's it. So basically this time I changed the flag from W to A, and let us see what happens now. So when I say append file, see, we already have written that file earlier. Now we are going to append the file. And when I say append file, probably again, there is nothing on the console, nothing to be worried about. But if you look at this, it says, I love watching movies. And after that, it says new content return. So basically, I love watching movies. That was my original content, or the content which I added last time. The same contents persisted, but again, on top of that, it has added the new content. So new content return. So this is the way append works. And that is the difference between a flag W and flag A. W means write and A means append. Very, very, very simple. So tomorrow, if you decide to append something, don't forget to change the flag to W. And when I say A, when you want to append something, use the flag as A. And when you want to write or overwrite the changes, then use flag as a W. Flag is nothing but the mode. Mode is W, mode is A, for example. Okay. Now this time, I neither want to write or nor want to append something. I want to read the contents. So probably I'll say read files, or a simple file right now. So how do I do this? To do this, again, the very first step is to open the file. Open the file in read mode. Again, it's going to be almost similar. Let's say file is equals to open. File name is same. That's myfile.txt. The only thing which is going to change is the R. That's it. Adesh, yes, the file is the reference. The file reference is pointing to the file, which is loaded with the name myfile.txt. Yes, it's a file handle or it's a file reference. Okay, next is again perform the operation. The operation I want to perform here is to read. And lastly, don't forget to say again, close the file. Sorry, close the file. How do you close the file? It's very simple, file.close. That's it. It's a read file again. And of course, I want to read the file by saying, just give me the data. How do I do this? Very, very, very simple. That's it. Data is equals to file.read. Print, maybe I can say the data, which is equals to data. Just want to make sure that I'm getting the data out of this file. I do. You see here, I love watching movies, new contents return, blah, blah, blah. So whatever is there in the file, I'm able to read it here. As simple as that. Okay. So probably when you want to read the contents, this is the way you can do it. When you want to append the contents, this is how you want to do it. When you're doing it for the first time and you want to write the contents, this is how you can do it. As simple as that. Okay. So probably there are 3 operations we have seen. There are a couple of more, but we'll talk about them later. Right now, the focus is not on the file. The focus is on the decorator. But because I found that the decorator was putting every single thing on the console and I wanted to put logs in my file, that's the reason I just gave you a quick introduction to how to open a file, how to write something into file, how to append something into file, how to read something from the file, and how to close the file. So you have seen all of them here. Now at least you can write the basic code. So later on, we'll talk about a few more functionalities in the file handling, maybe text versus binary, maybe copy pasting the file, cut pasting the file, deleting the file, creating empty file, and stuff like that. We'll talk about that later. Okay, Shripati, your question, a real-time scenario for job failure. I need to write the log details in file. How do I append date timestamp? We'll talk about it. Just wait for a minute. We'll see how do I do this. Okay. Adesh, are we going to see the file handling using OOP? That's the reason why I said the second part is coming later once we are done with the OOP. That's the reason. I'm just showing you a very quick introduction to it. There are many things which I can't talk about them right now. So let us finish few dependencies and then we'll talk about them again. Okay. Okay, now you know the basic stuff here, how to read the file, how to write the files, and how to append the file. And now I can come back to my, should I? Okay, not a good idea to modify the original code. Probably I'm just going to create a second one. or second version of my decorator. The decorator I used earlier was log. I'm going to use the same decorator one more time. This time we can directly start writing that log by using that function as a parameter. You know that it is going to have an inner function. That inner function has to be a variable length argument function. It's args and quarks like this. And then you do whatever you want to do, maybe the decoration I'm saying. And then probably don't forget to make a call to that function by passing args and quarks, whatever you are getting them from that function. And don't forget to again say return inner. That's it. What we are supposed to do here is to simply write down a decorator and we are done. So this is a kind of decorator. That's it. So this is a decorator. Of course, it is doing nothing right now. Just wait for a couple of minutes and you will be able to see that it is doing what exactly we were thinking about last time. Okay, so again, I'm going to say def. This is my add function. Let's say add function is accepting P1 and P2, like what we have said earlier. Next, I want to get the addition done. So addition or whatever I can say directly here, print is equals to, addition, which is equals to P1 plus P2. And then I want to make a call to that add and say 10, 20. I'll get the answer as 30, which is a very expected result. There is nothing wrong here. Everything is going good. But now I want to log all the details like what I was doing earlier. But this time I want to log those details into a file. So how do I do this? Now to do this, last time I was printing every single thing on console. This time data will remain same. The logging will be same, but only difference will be instead of putting them on console, we want to put them in file. That's it. Now to do this, probably you can see that here I'll have to open the file. So probably I'm going to put a comment and say open log file. But this time, I mean, if I say open log file and if I open that in W, probably you can understand if you are calling multiple functions, then every single time it is going to overwrite the previous changes. And that's the reason you have to open the log file in append mode, because you have to keep on appending all the logs one after another. So probably I see that this is the opening a file in the append mode. You know how to do that now. You can say file, which is equals to open, whatever file you can think of. What is it? Page 4, right? So page 4.log. So again, log is an extension I'm using. Not necessary that every time you have to use a log extension. You can use anything there. It's up to you. So it's okay. Again, don't forget to use it as an append log, append a flag. Okay, now I want to come back here and put all my parameters and every single thing there. So maybe I can say write the logs. Whatever you want to write the logs. So probably I'll say file.write. I think we are having args and file.write kwargs. Now, I don't know whether you have noticed this or not, but when we are writing something into the file, it will not add /n or new line character on its own. And if you do not add new line character, probably everything will go on one single line, you know? So it's not a good idea. Again, that's the reason why we are going to say file.write. And I want to especially write /n. /n is nothing but new line character, you know, or that escape sequence, right? So /n means new line character. I'm getting all those logs here. I mean, I'm getting the arguments and quarks here, but I think I forgot to mention the function name there. So what I'm going to do here is file.write. Let's say inside the function name. You know how to get that function name. You can say function dunder name like this. And probably even before that, I forgot to say again, that is going to be write, say dash, let's say 80. 40, 80, doesn't matter. Okay. Don't forget to add a /n all the time. Otherwise, you are not going to get the things there. Okay. Finally, when we are done with this, I think I'm going to put that /n one more time and then we'll put the dashes here. So that's it. Again, once you are done, you can come back here and say, I'm done, close the file. To close the file, again, it's as simple as file.close. You are done. And now I'm going to give it a try. Okay, look at your current directory and probably you will not find any file named page4.log. So there is nothing here, so there is nothing here. Now I'm going to call that add function. Watch what happens now. When I'm calling that add function, I'm supposed to get the answer as 30, which I will get because it's just an addition of 10 plus 20. So probably I'll say run. Look at the output. The output says add addition equals to 30. Oh, so now that clutter, that mess I was having last time on console is kind of clear. So all the logging now went to something like a file named page4.log, and only the output will be shown on the console. Let's see whether it really works. So probably you just come back here and say synchronize, sorry, not here. Just come back here. Sometimes it doesn't do it. So maybe I can say reload. Where did I do it? Did I do that? Oh, it has never done it because I never have called that function. So stupid. Let's call that function log. That will call the decorator. And then if I do it, oh, there is a problem. Okay, it says you cannot just put a tuple directly because it is expecting you to write strings. Yes, I did not see that coming. So not a big deal. You know that how it can be converted into a string, as simple as that. You can again say this is going to be a quarks. So the problem was I was not supposed to directly put that dictionary and tuple into the right, but I must have done this by mistake. So now it must have done it. So if I look at the page4.log, I see all of these things. I think it's better we can delete this and do it one more time. So probably I can say delete the file. Yes, please delete anyways, I don't care. And now let us run this file one more time. So when I say open this file, run this file, I see I'm going inside the file. These are my parameters. These are my, again, quarks. And yeah, that's it. That's it. So we are kind of done here. So again, Vipin, your question, is it a good idea to write the separate function for file operation in this case? You decide. It depends on you actually. I'm making it very simple right now because anyways, there are hardly a couple of lines I'm writing here. I mean, it makes sense to go for a separate function if you know the logic or the number of lines of code is kind of, number of lines of code. There are more, then you go for the separate function. But if it is hardly a couple of lines, you can just write them in the same function. Again, choice is yours. Okay. Parag, yes, still no log file. Exactly, I forgot to mention that. @log. I think it's done now. Sachin, your question. No need to mention the file path. Of course, yes. It is mentioned, and look at line number 6. On line number 6, I said page4.log. Now, because I did not mention the path, by default, the page4.log will be created in the same directory. But again, Sachin, it depends on you. If you decide to go for a separate directory, maybe you must have thought of creating a separate directory to collect all the different logs from different applications. Then you can simply specify that log there, specify that path there. For example, when you're on Linux, generally, Linux and Mac, generally you put all the logs in var/log. Yeah, of course you can do it. So the file will be created right there inside /var/log. So that's how we can do it. Okay. So probably that answers your question, Sachin, right? Okay. Next, Rohit, your question: can be multiple decorators like file log and console log? I'm unable to do so. Can you please help me out? Yes, we can, and yes, we are going to do it, but not right now. I'll show you that another. In next case or in another case where we go for Flask. Okay. So there will have multiple decorators. Having one decorator is okay. You can also have multiple decorators to do some more jobs. So we'll see how it can be done. Not right now, later. Right now, I want to keep it very simple. So later on, we'll see how we can do it with some advanced concepts of decorators there. Okay. One of the concepts of decorator will be called decorator of decorator. What do you mean by that? We'll talk about this later. Okay. Another question, Prashant, can we make a log file named dynamic by the program name itself? You decide. See, generally, when you talk about this, you can write it in a same file like this, or you can create it as a separate module, and then you can write this, or you can go for this dynamically as well. Yes, you can. Okay, of course. Okay. By the way, if you really want to go for a dynamic file name, then probably you can say __. Maybe you will have to go for this way. __name ___. dot log. So actually it is going to create a file with the name main underscore log. So this is how we can do it, you know. So underscore underscore main underscore underscore dot log will be created dynamically. So that's how we can do it. But what do you mean by this? We are going to see that later when we go for module. Okay, unless we know module, there is no point of talking about this. That's the reason I use the hard coded path. Page 4.log. Okay. Adesh, your question: how can I write a log file contents into a cloud? Because how as a developer I access the log file generated in the client side? Absolutely right, and I agree with that. But you know what? When we are done with the application development, we generally put every single thing on cloud. So basically, this application will not run on your machine. This application will run on the cloud. And if you really want to go for the cloud, then I mean, by default, when you say you create the file will be created on the cloud itself. That's one way to solve your problem. The second way, which we are going to solve by using something called as a Flask, will be done by consuming the web services. Now assume that here you are logging all the details on into a file. Fine, I'm agree with this and I'm okay with this strategy as well. But what if I want to, just put all this log into a cloud so that, I don't have to ask to my client, like, give me your logs. Instead, I can directly look into the cloud and get the logs from there. If you want to implement something like this, then probably you will have to consume the web services. Now, what is a web service? What do you mean by a REST web service precisely? What is a REST architecture? All of these things we are going to talk in the context of Flask. Okay. So Adesh, if you can hold your question in till the Flask module, you definitely will get the answer automatically. Okay. So Flask is the solution for you. How to put anything into the cloud. Flask is something that you are looking for. But anyways, I'm going to show you that example. Not only that, there are many different things we have to see later, and we'll explore them. Okay. Good. Okay. Next question. Who's that? Vipin. File format will always be text, or it is a log or anything else. By default, we are using a text file here. If you want, you can go for a binary by using the B mode as well. So it depends actually whether you want to go for a text file or the binary file. Today we are going to talk about only text file. Later on, we'll see what exactly do you mean by B or binary file and what's the difference between W and WB. So Prerna, to answer your question quickly, W is going to assume that it is a T here. T is by default assumed. T means it's a text file. And if you don't use T, and if you say B means binary file. So when you say binary, you can't write the text, you can't write the string, then you will have to convert every single thing to the bytes. We'll see that later. So right now, if you say either T or you skip this, because by default, if you're not specifying the file mode or file type as text or binary, then you are going to, the Python is going to by default consider this as a text. Okay, that answers your question. Anyway, so do you see that? Now it looks fantastic. I mean, whenever we are doing something, let me just delete this file and quickly give it a try one more time. I forgot to say arguments, because I don't know what exactly those are. So arguments is equals to this, and maybe I'll say arguments with key value pair. So maybe I can say arguments or KWRs better, which is equal to this. So now when I say run, probably every time a log will be collected, and this log will have all the details that I was looking for. You see, as simple as that. I hope that solves your problem. Okay. Okay, so we are kind of done with this. Now today we are using something like a very simple example of it. Later on we will add a few more details into it. A few more details like logging date timestamp, or maybe formatting the date, or maybe something like generating the file log dynamically, put them on the onto the cloud, and maybe write them in a binary format, and we'll see a bunch of other things in the second part of it. Okay. Okay, so now we know how to use a decorator and how we can convert that decorator into a file-based logger. So this is the logger function, or this is the logger decorator, which is going to log every single thing onto the file. So this is file-based logger. I hope you got the point, and I hope this is something that is working on your machine as well. How to log in a repeated function means Can I run append? You don't have to, because you see what is going to happen. Let me just go back here and say similar to this add function. There is one more. Let's say multiply, for example. So this is going to be another function. Watch what happens here. Multiply, and here I'll say multiplication. I'm sorry, multiplication. So right now I'm calling add. I'm okay with this. I'm going to call this add a couple of more times. Let's say 40 and 70, and say this is going to be multiply. What the hell? Multiply, and here I'm going to say 40 and 70 again. So when I say run, probably I got the answer for everything. But if you open this page4.log, you see every single time it has kind of noted down what were you calling. Okay. So probably now you know what exactly it is doing and how exactly it is doing. So probably you don't have to say append, you already have said it. So if you look at this one here, line number 6, here you already have said append, so you don't have to do it anything there. Okay. Akshara, your question, do we have any such feature in JavaScript? Do we have any such feature? Such in the sense what? There are many things we are doing here. So which one you are looking for, Akshara? Decorator, or maybe logger, or maybe file handling? What exactly you're talking about? Are we going to learn the REST APIs? Sangram, yes, there is one dedicated session for Flask. Flask is the one which is going to give you the REST API implementation. Okay, so we'll see REST APIs in details with the help of a package called as a Flask. Yes, Akshita, you are saying decorator or logger. Decorator is not available in Python, but you can write your own logger. So there are different ways to do it. As language changes, few things will also change. In a sense, the way you call the function, the way you write the code, or the way you use the feature will be a little bit different in different languages. So JavaScript can provide you the logger, but there is no decorator there. So it uses a different format, or it uses a different style of it. Okay. Okay, so now you got the concept. I hope it is looking good to you, and probably you must have seen the real use case of having a decorator. So this is not this is not the only one. There are many. This is one of them. One more we are going to talk about later, something like a file performance, and there will be a topic called as a NumPy. So in NumPy we have to do it, because unless we do it, you will not understand what is the difference between the Python's collection and the NumPy's collection. Okay, so that comparison we are going to do with the help of a kind of a time required for executing that code, and that for that we are going to use something like a decorator as well. Okay, so we'll see that later in a sense once we start with the next part, that is in NumPy. Anyways, so right now, as I said yesterday, we want to start with the new part. We want to change our context. Till now, whatever we were doing, it was kind of a scripting. It's generally known as the Python scripting. Now we want to jump from the scripting part into the object-oriented part, or POP part into object-oriented part. Till now, our focus was on function. Till now, we were writing all the time the functions. We were calling all those functions and getting the things done. But now, starting from today, we have to change our thinking process a little bit. And instead of focusing on the function, we'll focus on the data. And that's what we are talking about, object-oriented programming. So let us see what do you mean by it. What's the requirement of having object-oriented programming? What are the different concepts of object-oriented programming? And how Guido Rossum has implemented all those object-oriented features like encapsulation, abstraction, polymorphism, so on and so forth inside this Python language. So let's see how it can be done. Before we start with the actual object-oriented programming, I want to give you a kind of glimpse of what is coming. So probably till now we were writing different functions, and probably we were kind of using different lines of code into the functions, and we were getting them executed just by giving a function's name. Okay, so let's see how it is done in case of OOP. What is your question, Preeti? Is OOP written possible in AWS Lambda? AWS Lambda is a different story. I mean, there you can write any type of code. Python is one of the languages there. So when you go to AWS Lambda, you can write the Python code without using OOP or without knowing OOP. So OOP is not a requirement for AWS Lambda. AWS Lambda is something called as serverless computing. So what is that serverless computing? Probably if you're interested, we are starting a new batch this Saturday, which is going to talk about all things in the AWS. So probably you can come there and we'll talk about AWS Lambda in details. So right now, just to answer your question, it's okay not to even know OOP and still write the AWS Lambda code there. Okay. And again, AWS Lambda can support multiple languages. Python is one of them. Other one is JavaScript, the quickest and the simplest language that AWS Lambda supports. Anyways, coming back here in this context, I want to start with the object-oriented programming. But before I talk about the object-oriented, let me just give you a kind of a glimpse of it. So forget about OOP for a minute. Let's look at the previous generation code, the code we were writing earlier and the code we have already understood earlier. So probably what I'm thinking here is, you need to help me here. So I'm thinking here to store the data about let's say person. So I have person's name, person's address, person's age, person's email, and I want to store the data. Can you help me to decide which collection should I go for? Any suggestion for me? Should I go for dictionary, list, tuple, or set? Which one should I go for? Naturally, everyone is recommending only one thing, and that is absolutely right. That is a dictionary. You know that because dictionary is the way where we can add the key value pairs, right? So probably what should I do here? I should say this is going to be my person. Check this out, which is equals to a kind of a dictionary where we can say the person's attribute like name will have a value. Let's say this is person one. Maybe address, which is let's say Pune, for example. Pune, for example. Next one, let's say address is done. Maybe I can say phone number, for example, which is +91 blah blah blah, whatever it is. And finally, this is an email. So this is going to be person1@test.com. And I forgot one more thing, that is age. Say age is equals to let's say 10, for example. This is how we can do it. That's it. So this is my first person, the person which is having the attribute like name, address, phone number, email, and probably age. That's it. So this is how I'm going to deal with the person's data. Fine. You told me like to store the data in dictionary. I did that. Everything is looking really great. Now this is my person one. So probably I'm going to have a couple of persons data. This is my person one. Let's assume that this is my person two now. So this person two is going to have the name as person two. This person, let's assume that he is from Mumbai region, for example. Maybe these two guys are kind of close friends. They're having the phone number in sequence, and probably the email address is like this, and the age is like this. The other person is 10 and this person is 20. Very, very simple. So probably when you talk about a kind of a person data, we can represent that person's data by using a dictionary, and we have taken a right decision there. Now I want to deal with that data. Just imagine that these two persons, I want to check against my logic to see whether they are eligible for voting. Very simple requirement, by the way. So probably what I'm saying here is, if I want to check if the person is eligible for voting, I'm going to come back here and say if person one of age, you know the logic, by the way, is greater than or equals to 18, that simply means the person is eligible for voting. So I'll say yes. Maybe I'll say yes. This person, I can get that person's name by saying person one of name. Is it name? Yeah. Is it name? Is eligible for voting. So I'll say is eligible for voting. That's it. If it is not, I mean, if the address, if the age doesn't match with that condition, with the criteria, then I would say else and say print, no, this person is not eligible for voting. So no, the person is not eligible for voting. That's it. This is the way we can check whether the person one is eligible for voting. Let me just give it a try. Probably you see that the person is not eligible for voting. That's simply because the age is below 18. I want to check if the second person is eligible for voting. What do? Nothing, just copy and paste the code, isn't it? So if I try this one, it seems like this is a person two. Seems like this is person two. This is person two. I want to check. And probably if I say run, you will see that person one is not eligible for voting, but person two is, because person two's age is above 18. And that's how we can say we have written the code. Okay, couple of observations. Can you see something is wrong here? It's not looking good. What do you think? What's wrong here? What do you think here? Separate dictionary. Now, modularity, fine, okay. Repetitive, exactly. You see that there are few lines of code which are kind of repeated. I mean, this code is completely repeated here. This is exactly same piece of code we have written. It's just the person one is replaced with person two. Of course, this is not a good idea. So probably I'm going to put this code in comment. I'm going to put this code in comment, and probably I'm thinking about to create a separate function for it. You see, this is the function. Maybe I can say def. This is the function can vote. So this can vote is going to accept a person. Sorry, I'm in Python right now, not in JavaScript. So it's better we can simply say can vote here. And this is the person. Whatever logic I was writing earlier, I'm just going to move this here. Rather, I'll just say cut and paste, because this was done earlier and we saw that it was not the right way to write the code. So we anyways have to comment the code. Let's remove it. It's not of any use. Okay. So in this case, it's not the person one, it's the person the other. So person is eligible for voting or person is not eligible for voting. That's how we can do it. So we have got a function, let's say can vote. And probably now I'm going to come back and say, instead of writing this code again and again, because we are having two person objects, it's better for me to simply call that function. Call that function can vote, pass person one, call that function one more time, pass person two, and when I say run, I'll get exactly same output. There is no change at all. But you see that now my code looks elegant. I mean, tomorrow if I'm having, let's say, hundreds of person object, then still my function will remain same, and that person objects will keep on passing to that function to see whether they are eligible for voting. So that solves my one problem. It is looking very nice. I mean, it is looking the elegant solution, at least till now, compared to the previous generation. But again, after this, when I'm just talking about the same, or when I'm thinking more on this particular context, then I kind of look into this and say, it seems like we are calling the can vote function and passing person one. We are passing can vote, we are calling that can vote function and passing person two. Fine. Can I not pass that can vote function? Can I not call that can vote by passing 10 here? Will that work? Just see here and tell me. Will that work? No, right? Why will it not work? Any reason? Any reason? Why will it not work? Line number 27, you are saying it is not going to work. Why? Ketan, you are saying object, but what do you mean by that object? Pranit, you are saying because 10 is not an argument type. It is actually, isn't it? It's an integer type. Its parameterless function is accepting a dictionary. That is the right answer. So basically, when I wrote that function last time, I had something in my mind. I decided to pass a dictionary parameter here, and that's how I have written that logic. Which means whenever you are writing a function like can vote, it is having a kind of requirement. The requirement is like it should accept a person dictionary, number one. Number two, the person dictionary must be having two keys, at least two keys. One with the value, one with the key age, which is going to have the age of that person, and second with the name. In a sense, the key should have a name as a name. Otherwise, this is not going to work. Precisely 10 itself is not a dictionary. Forget about this. And because it's not a dictionary, of course, there is no question of checking whether age is there or whether name is there or not. So probably when I say run, you know, the application is going to crash. It's like committing suicide, you know. We already did now. So you see that it says integer object is not subscript table. Subscript table, in a sense, it's trying to check that with subscript, the square bracket, to see whether the age key is available in that integer, which is not the case. Which is not the case. It's simply because you are supposed to pass the dictionary, but now you are passing 10. Worse, there is no way I can check it, at least for now. So when I talk about a situation like this, it works, but to a certain extent and with some prerequisites, with some conditions. So unless you do this, your code is not going to work. So the thing here is, when you are talking about the POP, procedure oriented programming, where our focus is on function, we always think about the function and then we think about the parameters and then we call that function with the right parameter. But situation like this you can't avoid. Situation like this may happen because this function is open. When I say open, this function is a global function, and global, I hope you know that it means it is kind of accessible to anyone. So anyone can call that function. And because you are in Python, and Python is a dynamic based language or dynamically typed language, that means the data, the parameters, or you can say the arguments, will not have any specific data types. So there, when you say 10, it is still going to accept it. Even if you say bool, that's true and false, still it is going to accept it. So it doesn't matter which type of parameter you are passing. And that's a kind of bit challenging when you're writing such kind of functions. So is there any way we can solve that problem? Yes. Before I tell you the solution, first look at it from other perspective. We have a function can vote, we have a person object, we have a person function can vote, we have a person too. So person 1 and person 2, both of them are the dictionaries which are storing the details of a person object or a person or maybe a person's attribute, like the name, address, age, phone, blah, 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 blah. So when you say something like this, when you say something like a data, that's nothing but the person's data. I just mentioned this as person data because it is a person data, by the way. This is also person data. Precisely, this is person 1 data, this is person 2's data. So once we have the data here, now we see the data which is in terms of dictionary is kind of it's kind of a requirement, or it's kind of a prerequisite to call this function. So we have made an assumption, like when you are calling can vote, it's mandatory for me to pass person as a dictionary which look exactly like this. If it looks exactly like this, then and only then it is going to work. Otherwise your function is going to crash, or your application is going to crash and say, hey, you're not passing it in the right way, or maybe that is not subscriptable, something like this. So when you talk about a scenario like this, one thing I can say for sure, and maybe I can summarize this entire problem here by saying, don't you see that there is a kind of strong relationship between the data you are creating here, maybe the person 1's data, and the canword function you have written here? They are having a tight dependency, they are having the tight, you can say, relationship. It just because if I do not pass that dictionary in the right format, the application is going to crash. And I see that it's right there, it's going to crash. It is crashing. If I say right now, still it is crashing. It's crashing because you're trying to accept a dictionary, but you passed here as an integer. Now this is the problem. This is the problem of this is the problem of procedure oriented programming or function based programming. Now when you talk about the new approach, the very first thing that you should think about is a function, is a data, or is a kind of a dictionary. I mean, I'm not saying like it's dictionary all the time, but think about the data. A person's data, for example, mobile's data, for example, car's data, for example. And then you start thinking about all the functionalities that you want to perform on top of it. For example, I created the function, I created the person's data. I created the person 2's data, and then I called that function, or then I created that function and handled whether the person was eligible for voting or not. So I checked that last time after I created the data. When your focus is not on the function, when your focus is on the data, because data is more important these days. I know you might have heard about that. The data science, machine learning, all of these things are in boom. Why? The main reason is because we are having huge data. We are generating almost petabytes of data every day. Zillions of bytes of data is getting generated every day all over the world. And that is the reason why we have ton of data to process the data, to learn something out of it. You need some algorithms and some programming languages. That's the reason machine learning is in boom. That's the reason Python and R, both of them are in boom. So basically data is everywhere, and without data, you cannot live in this world these days. Every now and then maybe your ISP, for example, or whoever you are sending your details with, they are using your data to do something which with which they can earn some profit. For example, when you purchase your SIM card, you pass your data to them, you put your name, address, and all of these details. These people generally sell your data to other companies like insurance and other things, and those people, they start calling you saying, hey, do you need insurance? We have some policies. Do you need a credit card? We have some credit card offers going on. Do you need our bank account? Because we are having ton of offers with it. How do they get their numbers? How do they get your numbers? Your numbers is, your number will be provided by your service provider. Not only service provider, there are so many different applications where you are passing your data, and those people are selling your data to make the profit out of it. And that's the reason why everywhere data is very important. If you are having a data, you are in a good shape. If you're not having a data, nobody will care about what you are doing. So our focus today is on the data, and forget about the real world in the programming as well. Haven't you noticed that I've created the data first, I've created the structure first, and then I went back to that function. So here also our focus was on the data and will be on the data. So in the world where the focus is on the data, we have to think about the new approach. Till yesterday, till today, maybe before we started with that topic, we were writing functions first and then we were thinking about the data. But now, starting from today, we have to first talk about the data. We have to first finalize the structure, and then we'll start talking about the different functionalities that will be kind of working on that particular data. This is where the object-oriented programming comes into picture. Okay, so this is a kind of a starting point for object-oriented programming. Again, the most important thing is the data. To cope up with that data, to make the arrangement in such a way that the data and the functionalities can come close in one single entity or in one single proximity, then you should go for a kind of object-oriented programming. We'll explore what is object-oriented programming, what are the different use cases, what are the different terminologies, how do you do that, and so on and so forth, maybe step by step. But before you start with object-oriented programming, you should always know why we are learning object-oriented programming. There are multiple reasons. The main reason is because our focus is on the data, and to represent the data, we are going to use an object. So what is an object? Hey, this is an object. The object is always a collection of key value pairs. Let me repeat myself. Object is nothing but collection of key value pairs. Now you might be wondering, I said the same thing earlier for a dictionary as well, right? I said that a dictionary is nothing but a collection of key value pairs, and I'm still sticking to my statement. Object is nothing but collection of key value pairs, because behind the scene, Python is going to treat your objects as a dictionary. And it's not like behind the scene. I'll prove the fact later that it is going to convert your object into a dictionary. So what is an object? An object is not only similar to dictionary, Utpal, it is a kind of a dictionary behind the scene. So it's kind of a collection of key value pairs. Now we have to talk about how to create that dictionary, how to maintain the integrity, how to add different functions which will again work on that dictionary and will make it as a one single unit, and so on and so forth. So when you talk about the object-oriented programming, our focus will be on the data. Let's turn this condition into a simpler example, or maybe a simpler approach here. So earlier we were taking the procedure-oriented approach or function-based approach. Now we want to take an object-based approach. How do we do this? Now to do this, as I said, we have to create we have to think about an object. And if I want to think about an object, there is only one way to create an object in Python, and that is called as a class. So what is a class then? A class, think about it as a template to create an object. So basically, when I say I need a person's object to store the person's data, like person's name, person's address, person's phone, person's email, person's age, this is a kind of my data about that person. And if I want to put that data in a particular format with the particular keys and values pairs, then we have to define the template. We have to define the rule that rule, that template will be created by using a class. So whenever you think about an object, you always will start creating a class. Class is a kind of unit with which you can define the structure of your object. Think about it again. When you are building a building, when you are building your home, for example, what do? Do you directly go to market, purchase the bricks, and then start putting those bricks one top of another? Never. You contact a person who generally call himself as a civil engineer. Big question mark these days, but still he call himself as a civil engineer. You consult with him. He gives you a kind of a blueprint, and based on the blueprint, you will put you will add your own suggestions. He will fix and he will finalize the blueprint, and then based on the blueprint, he start building the building. So basically, even before you are even before you are building your home, or even before you start your construction, you first create the blueprint so that you will get an idea how your construction will look like. You will see how much budget it will need, how much how many workers that particular construction would require, and then you start gathering all the different things for that. So in the real world, forget about the programming, but in the real world also, before you do anything, you study the fact first. You collect all the required information, you put them in a kind of a specification, and then you start doing the things there. Exactly what we do there in the construction, we are doing it here. There, we are building the buildings. Here, we are building an object. There, we need the blueprint so that we can look at the blueprint, we can put it as a kind of a reference, and then we start putting one floor on top of another to build a building. Here, that template, which will tell me how to create an object, what are the different keys I need to put there, what are the different functionalities that object is going to be operated with. All of these things, I can put them together as a kind of a rules. That rule, a set of rules, or that template is called as a class. Right now, I don't care about the data. Right now, I don't care about too many things. I just want to start creating a class. Let's see how to do it. To do this, I'm going to say this is the class as a keyword, and my class name is kind of a person. That's it. Now, this is a block. Again, I know we already have talked about the block last time. A block is the one which starts with the colon. And of course, every single statement in that block will have a proper indentation level, and you write the code like this. Fine. So inside this, you will start adding your rules, like what do you need, what exactly the key value pairs that you want to add inside that object, and so on and so forth. Right now, it's okay. I want to start with the simplest empty class. This is an empty right now. Maybe we'll see the reason why I kept empty, because there's a special reason which is not possible in other languages, but this is how the Python's object-oriented programming starts. We'll see tomorrow, not today, but at least see, I have an empty class here. Now, this is a kind of a blueprint which tells me your object will be empty when you create it later. So fine, I got an idea like my object will be empty, but I still want to create an object. How do I do this? To create an object, this is the way you can do it. So object, or maybe instantiation, which is nothing but a process of creating an object. So here I'm going to create an object. So how do you create an object? To create an object, maybe I'm going to say person. This is a kind of a reference which is equals to person, and you just call that as a function. So probably you can say that a person parenthesis, this is a class, and probably you can see this is the class which we have written here, which is going to do nothing, and that's the reason why your person one will be a kind of an empty object. Let me go back here and see what is there inside that person one. So maybe I'll say person one is equals to person one, and you will see there is nothing. It just a kind of an object of a class called as a person. So person's object, which is loaded at this particular memory location, is what I'm getting here. Again, I'm going to put that same stuff which we already have seen many a times earlier. This is going to be a type of person one run, and you will see that what is the type of it? This is the type, class person. That's it. So basically, whenever you are talking about the object-oriented programming, in case of Python, whenever you want to create an object, the very first thing that you should start with a class. A class, think about it as a template, or you can say as a protocol to create a create an object that will decide how many number of key value pairs you want to put, or how many functionalities that you want to operate the data with, and so on and so forth. So that is how we can start talking about object-oriented programming. Now, it's a very bold statement I'm making today, but tomorrow, or maybe day after tomorrow, or maybe after we are done with this topic, you will definitely understand that. I'm saying in Python, there is no data type. Oh, you must be thinking I'm crazy right now, because we already have talked about that earlier, isn't it? We said like there is something called as an integer, there is something called as a float, there is something called as a string or a boolean. We talked about them, right? And today I'm saying there is no data type in Python. What you have in Python is nothing but set of classes. Now, what do you mean by that statement, and why I made that statement today? I'm going to explain it tomorrow. Okay, so this episode will be continued tomorrow. Don't forget to watch that episode, tomorrow's episode, because in tomorrow's episode you will see what exactly do you mean by that statement. And not only that, you will see how to add something into that class. How do you make this class useful? Right now this is an empty class, it's not doing anything other than just creating an empty object. So tomorrow we'll start putting something into it and we'll make it more useful. Okay, so tomorrow we are going to bring the data and the functionalities together. We'll explore a couple of different things there. We'll see how to do that, and probably we'll kind of move on with the object-oriented programming and try to see how reusability is implemented in Python. Okay. Again, maybe this is a kind of a request. See if it is possible for you to do it. If I go back to our so-called notes, I think you already have your notes with you. So probably if you just go back to notes, this is not for you. This is JS, this is TypeScript, this is not for you. Python, where are you? Here it is. So if you look at your notes, I think you might have seen, I already have mentioned all the object-oriented programming there. Just let me open it again. Here it is. And if you just go scroll down, you will find object-oriented programming here. So I'm requesting you just to go through it. I don't want you to understand every single thing. I just want to see, just go through it. Tomorrow's case, it will be easy for you to understand. Okay, so scroll down here and probably you will see what exactly that object-oriented programming is. At least you will see what terminologies I'm going to use tomorrow. Anyways, we'll put some more light on it and we'll see how that object-oriented programming is going to help us to build some better code. Okay, so anyways, we'll explore this tomorrow. Who's that? I didn't see your comments, by the way. Prashant, you're saying yesterday's news, China is collecting data of chief ministers of India. China is collecting data from all over the world, and that's the reason everyone is banning it. We also did that, right? So anyways, China is equals to fraud, so leave it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, China is kind of collecting all the data, and that's the reason many of the companies are, many of the countries are removing Chinese countries from their countries. So they are doing it right now. So it's kind of worst country in the world. Can't say anything about this. Okay. Object is a collection of attribute. Yes, Sripati, object is collection of attributes. You can say it's a collection of key value pairs. We'll talk about that attribute and key value pair, the relationship between them tomorrow. Sangram, there was an introductory session in our college that the instructor said everything is an object in Python. That's what I said here. There is no data type. Everything is a class. And when you say class is nothing but it is used to create an object. To be very precise, what you said is absolutely right. Everything in Python is an object, but to create an object, you need a class. And that's what I said. There is no data type. All that you have seen so far, integer, float, str, boolean, whatever you have seen, tuple, list, set, dictionary, all of them are classes, you know. So we'll talk about this tomorrow. Absolutely. What is that? What is the mean of pass? What pass did I say? Pass means it's going to do nothing. I mean, I don't think this is new to you. Pass is the keyword which is going to say do nothing. So it's an empty class which is not going to do anything there. Okay. Nikhil, you are saying add a closure decorator in notes. Did I not add it? I think I did. Yes, exactly. I see that it's completely empty right now. Definitely, I'll add some closure and decorator notes later, and I'll share them with you one more time. Okay, don't worry. Nikhil, thanks for reminding me. I completely forgot that. Utpal, thanks for extending recorded session validity. No problem. Utpal, it's not only for you. I know there are many working professionals here, and for them, it's a bit difficult to attend a session early. I mean, early day or maybe every day in that earlier timing. So that's a reason why we have increased the timing or increase the expiry date. So take the benefit of it. Okay. Too much of suspense. Yes, there is. True. Adesh, your question is decorator not included in the notes? I think yes. I will put that notes. I will put I'll put the notes for closure and decorator. Okay, we'll put that and we'll share one more time. Yes, that's okay. Fine. No problem. No problem. Tomorrow we'll continue with this, and tomorrow you will see some advanced concepts in object-oriented programming. Do not miss tomorrow's sessions because all the other sessions will be dependent on tomorrow's session. Okay. Thank you guys one more time for attending today's sessions. Really appreciate your patience. I think it's better we can call it a day. I'll see you tomorrow exactly at 8 o'clock. Okay. Till then, bye-bye and have a very great day ahead. Bye-bye.